What's going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today, when I talk to you about SoFi, I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really happened today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go down 2.15%. 45.34 million shares were traded. 45.34 is the average. So pretty much on point exactly. But pre-market though, you do see a lot more optimism. So it did have a high of around $8.30. But as that package deal from China did come out and more people started to really digest on what it was truly saying, more red flags did pop up, especially as well if you do piggyback that with China's recent GDP numbers. That was also another signal that their economy is slowing. So for them to really just inject 278 billion, I believe that's what the projected amount is, or proposed amount, like that's not good. That's a very big red flag. So a lot of the broader market and growth stocks did pull down. So SoFi kind of got dragged down with that, which is very unfortunate, right? Because SoFi was really looking like it wanted to once again just break out into higher highs. And once it does get past these very strong resistance points, then $9, $10, it's just an easy domino effect from there. But because of just that news, it kind of got dragged down. Aside from that, I did say on my video over the weekend that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are going to be very much technical driven days. So in SoFi's case, $8 and $7.90 or around that range are very strong resistance points. I'll go over all of that today or near the tail end of the video. When it comes to SoFi though, specific, there has been no SEC filings, no press releases, so kind of gone radio silent up until their earnings, which I believe is around 3 business days away. That's not counting today, of course. There was a good analysis piece that did come out saying SoFi Technologies, a breakout may be ahead. So in this piece, similar to the good one that came out from Data-Driven Investing yesterday, I think it was, but this one does talk on how there's going to be a record number of members just after their earnings. That is when SoFi is going to project and go higher. And of course, as a result of their earnings, Wall Street will kind of look at their numbers, realize that it's undervalued and cause it to go higher. That's kind of my close notes and my summarization of all of this. So I highly suggest in researching and reading this, in my opinion. But despite the optimism behind the scenes, you still do see shorts. Shorts are very resilient about believing in SoFi. So today, shorts did increase 375,000 shares, kind of a drop in the bucket overall though, considering 123.61 million shares are overall being shorted. So kind of a drop in the bucket, like I said, but 13.81% of the free float is being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 0.92%. And as I've said in the past, I'm merely bringing this up more as a benchmark. I definitely do not see SoFi being a short squeeze play. If their earnings is positive, then yes, you should see shorts naturally leaving. I don't see a squeeze happening, but especially with the cost to borrow being so cheap, but still, I feel like 13.81% is very, very high, too high in fact. Moving on though, looking at options. So $5.79 million in calls being purchased versus 3.08 million in puts. Sentiment wise, 50% of all the options being done today were bearish. So it's kind of weird to think about the fact that people are still hedging, or maybe it could be hedging or whatever else. Just there's, I don't know, a lot of people clearly are mixed on this upcoming earnings for whatever reason. I'm not really understanding the basis of that, unless they're anticipating maybe a broader pullback, a massive recession. I'm not really sure. Of the call options that were purchased today, there's a consensus for it to be around 850. So that's a lot more optimistic than the last several days. And while I'm on here, I just wanted to bring up one thing. So as I've said, I believe last video, I just wanted to kind of educate you guys. So for instance, last Friday when I said that market makers won't want to cover any potential exercising of call options, they'll try to keep it below 750. And how I knew that is if you look at the open interest, it shows all the open interest for all the call options. And in a lot of growth stocks and spec plays, such as SoFi, market makers do not have all these shares readily available. So typically, if there is call options that are expiring in the money, they have to go to the open market and buy them, which causes a nice bump up in the stock price, usually. whether they do that on Friday or the following Monday. 9 times out of 10, I usually see a nice bump up on the Monday. But regardless, if there is a very strong, or I guess large amount of open interest, market makers won't want to cover, right? They don't want to go out on the open market and buy that. They'd rather them expire worthless. So for instance, last Friday, there was, I think, 38,000 in open interest at the 750 strike price. And when the price was at, I believe, $7.15, I said market makers will not want it to close at 750 or higher. So where did it land? $7.49. So once again, if you're looking at the open interest, that's a good indication of where more self-made resistance points are going to be. Of course, that's manipulation because market makers are trying to suppress it, whether it be through shorting or whatever other means they might potentially have as well. But still, that's the stock market. So that's a little bit more of a tutorial. So when I go over open interest and stuff like that, just take note, especially considering on February the 16th, you can kind of see at the $8 strike price, there's currently 25,000 in open interest. So if it is hovering around that range, then yes, market makers won't want to cover. And keep in mind, if you see it at like a $10 strike price, or like for instance at the 550, they're not going to try and bring it down dollars. If it's within maybe a 50-cent range or within like a 1 or 2 strike prices, that is where you might start to see some manipulation. But then again, what do I know? I'm not a financial advisor. You guys do your own due diligence. Looking at the puts that were purchased today, it is anticipated for it to be sub 750. And all of this does make sense with the technicals. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So with it closing at $7.75, it is trading between this pivot and this R1. So $7.52 is a very strong support. And clearly though, based on the puts, people are anticipating for that to break. It didn't really get tested at all today, so that's generally a good sign. And we do know that this S1, so the $7.28 is a very strong support because it did bounce off of that twice, both Thursday and Friday last week. But $7.76 seems to be something that SoFi is struggling with a little bit. After hours, it's going up slightly. So within this right here, so this R1 to this R2, and that's as a byproduct of Netflix and their earnings. So Netflix definitely did have fairly good earnings. I believe they missed on their earnings per share. But aside from that, record number of subscribers, especially given the circumstances and everything. I don't know. It's interesting. And this is why I've said in the past, pay attention to who is unveiling their earnings, because potentially that could cause the broader market and a lot of valued stocks such as SoFi to go up higher. So that might happen when American Express, Visa, Tesla, and as well, like I said, Netflix unveil their earnings. So ultimately, some support and resistance points for you to kind of watch for going into tomorrow is $7.92 and then $8.16. So that's the next strong resistance points. Of course, on Thursday, GDP, and then Friday, PCE. So the first couple of days, so Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, are just going to be merely the technicals, and then Thursday, Friday are going to be dictated based on the data that does come out. And then good old Monday, we have our earnings. So SoFi is a very, very interesting investment, to say the least, a very volatile one. But despite that, though, you do see number of retail investors getting in. So based on the volume, you can tell that big money and retail were both buying. And that's kind of been the case over the last couple of days. Looking at stochastic, you do see a nice deviation. So black line above the red showing a bullish sentiment, and it is at 15, so still considered somewhat oversold. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, give yourself a shout out. Did you buy today? Did you sell? What did you do with SoFi? And one final thing, if you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.